Continuing our lecture, in today's lecture we are going to discuss about the B12 deficiency, how the B12 deficiency is caused, and what are the tests which we do to know the exact reason for B12 deficiency. Now, if you haven't watched my second video, then please first go to the second video, watch it, and then come on to this video. Now, any vitamin deficiency, today we are going to talk about B12 deficiency as well as folic acid deficiency. Now, broadly speaking, about any vitamin, its deficiency, any vitamin's deficiency occurs due to three main reasons. First reason, either it is due to reduced intake, either the intake of any vitamin it is reduced, or there is reduced absorption. We have taken the B12 or vitamin in good quantity, but due to some absorption defect in our body, the vitamin it is not absorbed, so it may convert into vitamin deficiency. Third is increased demand of the body. In some cases there is increased demand of some vitamins. In that case also there may be a deficiency of B12. But today, as we are going to talk about B12 deficiency, in B12 deficiency it is not related, or it is very less related to intake, to reduced intake or increased demand of the body. Mainly B12 deficiency, it is caused due to reduced absorption of the B12. Mainly B12 deficiency, it is caused due to reduced absorption of B12. Hence, I have explained in detail about the absorption process of B12 in the second video. Now, one by one, we will discuss the causes of B12 deficiency. First is in strict vegetarians. Now, if a person he is a strict vegetarian, he has never consumed any animal products, and we all know that B12 it is mainly absorbed from animal products. Animal products are main source of B12, and if this person is a strict vegetarian, he has never consumed any animal products, then he will be having a deficiency of B12. Another case is of women feeding infant. Now, if this woman, she is a strict vegetarian, and if she is a strict vegetarian and she has never consumed any animal products, then there may be a deficiency of B12 in this woman. And if this woman is developing a B12 deficiency, then this infant which is being fed on his mother's milk, he will be also developing B12 deficiency. This infant, he will also develop a B12 deficiency. Now, second reason for B12 deficiency, it is due to deficiency of intrinsic factor. Now, deficiency of this intrinsic factor, it may also lead to deficiency of B12. How? It has two cases. First case is of gastrectomy, and another case is of pernicious anemia. Now, if a person, he comes to the clinic, he goes to a doctor, and the doctor does his endoscopy, and at the end the doctor, he concludes or diagnoses that the person, he is suffering from some cancers in his stomach, and gastrectomy is done of that patient. If gastrectomy is done, then this intrinsic factor which was produced by the parietal cells, it will not be produced. And if this intrinsic factor is not produced, the B12 which was carried by the intrinsic factor for further absorption, it will not be carried. If there is intrinsic factor deficiency, this B12 which was carried by intrinsic factor for further absorption, it will not be carried, and hence due to gastrectomy there will be a deficiency of B12. Another reason of deficiency of intrinsic factor, it is pernicious anemia. I will explain pernicious anemia in the further lecture in detail, but for now, pernicious anemia, it is a disorder or a disease in which there is a autoimmune destruction, or the antibodies, they destroy the gastric fundus mucosa. They destroy the gastric fundus mucosa, and hence these parietal cells, they are also destroyed, and hence there is a deficiency of intrinsic factor, and the B12 it will not be carried further for its absorption. Hence pernicious anemia and gastrectomy, they both are the causes of intrinsic factor deficiency, and if there is a deficiency of intrinsic factor, there will be a deficiency of B12 for sure. This pernicious anemia, it is the main reason. What is the main reason? If someone asks you that what is the main reason of deficiency of B12, will answer him that due to pernicious anemia. Pernicious anemia, in most of the cases, it is the most common reason for B12 deficiency. Now, third reason for B12 deficiency, it is achlorhydria. Achlorhydria is a condition in which the HCl levels in the body, they are reduced. The HCl in our body, it is reduced. Now, if the HCl which was secreted by the parietal cells, it is reduced, then this pepsinogen which was secreted from the chief cells, it will not be converting into pepsin, because this process or this reaction in which pepsinogen is being converted into pepsin, it is mediated by this HCl. If HCl will be absent, then pepsinogen will never get converted into pepsin, and if pepsin is not formed, then the animal proteins which surround the B12, they will not get digested, and if this B12 it will not get free, these animal proteins, if they are not digested by the pepsin, this B12 will not get free, and if this B12 is not free, it will never bind to the R binder, and it will never move further for its absorption. Again, if there is achlorhydria, achlorhydria is a condition in which HCl levels in our body, they are decreased. If there is a deficiency of HCl, then this pepsinogen, it will not be converted into pepsin, and if pepsin is not formed, it will not digest the animal proteins. If animal proteins are not digested, the B12 it will not get free, and if B12 it will not get free, then it will never bind to this R binder, and it will not move further for its absorption. Hence, achlorhydria, it is also a reason for deficiency of B12. Now, fourth reason is chronic pancreatitis. Now, if a person he is having chronic pancreatitis, then this pancreatic juice which was secreted from the pancreas, it will not be secreted. In chronic pancreatitis, most of the exocrine functions of the pancreas, they are destroyed, they are disturbed, and if the exocrine functions of this pancreas, they are disturbed, then this proteases, then this pancreatic juice, it will not be released, and it will not bind this R binder. It will not destroy this R binder. And if this R binder, it is not digested by this pancreatic juice, B12 which is present inside the R binder, it will not get free. And if B12 will not get free and it will not bind further to intrinsic factor, it will not be absorbed in the further processes. Again, if a person is having chronic pancreatitis, then in this condition the pancreatic juice, it will not be secreted. This pancreatic juice, it contains a lot of enzymes. These enzymes, they destroy the R binder, the protein R binder, and they let the B12 free. If this R binder is not destroyed, then the B12, it will not get free, and further it will not be available for absorption. Hence, due to this condition, there will be a deficiency of B12. There will be a deficiency of B12. Another reason for B12 deficiency, it is due to incorporation. It is due to incorporation or overgrowth of bacteria. Now, in our GIT, bacteria are present, but they have a very controlled growth, or they are in very less amount. But sometimes, if due to some reason there is a bacterial overgrowth in the GIT, and if the bacteria in the GIT, they overgrow, they will develop such type of blind loops. Now suppose this is a GIT, and here due to some surgery there is a development of abnormal anastomosis. There is a development of abnormal anastomosis. Suppose this is abnormal anastomosis. Earlier, before the surgery, the food, it was passing through this pathway. But after the surgery, due to development of this abnormal anastomosis, due to necrosis occurs in this area, and due to abnormal anastomosis, now the food, it is passing directly through this pathway. And now if the food is passing directly through this pathway, then this structure, we call it as a blind loop. We call it as blind loop. And there is a bacterial overgrowth in this area. There is a bacterial overgrowth in this area. These bacteria, they love the B12 and they consume all the B12, and nothing is available for our absorption. And hence, in humans, due to bacterial overgrowth, there is a deficiency of B12. Or here, either there may be blind loops, or here a diverticulum may develop in which there is bacterial overgrowth. They will consume all the B12. So bacterial overgrowth is another reason for B12 deficiency. Now, moving further, another reason for B12 deficiency, it is due to incorporation or accumulation of a fish tapeworm. Now what is this fish tapeworm? It was sixth. Fish tapeworm. This fish tapeworm, it comes in the GIT and it settles down here. And it consumes all the B12 intrinsic factor and B12 complex. This fish tapeworm, accumulation of this fish tapeworm, it is most common in Scandinavian countries. For example, Denmark, Norway. In these countries, there is accumulation of fish tapeworm. This fish tapeworm, it loves the B12 and intrinsic factor complex, and here all the B12 and intrinsic factor, it is loaded in this fish tapeworm and nothing is available for absorption. The fish tapeworm which is accumulated mostly, we call it as diphyllobothrium latum. Diphyllobothrium latum. It accumulates in the GIT. It sits for a long time, for 2 or 3 years, and it goes on loading all the B12 and consuming all the B12, and after 2 to 3 years the person, he develops B12 deficiency. Another reason for B12 deficiency, now we have seen first reason, it was due to decreased intake in strict vegetarians. Then we have seen the abnormal disturbances, in which we have seen achlorhydria. Then we have seen deficiency of intrinsic factor due to gastrectomy and pernicious anemia. Then we have seen microbial overgrowth and accumulation of fish tapeworm. Now, if this surface of ileum, this absorptive surface of ileum, if it undergoes atrophy, or the surface, it goes under some defect due to which it can't absorb the B12. Now, when does this occur? Ileal absorption defect. The defect in absorption from the ileum, it mainly occurs in a condition we call it as tropical sprue. What is tropical sprue? In some of the tropical countries, due to attack by an unknown etiological agent, we don't know the exact reason, but due to attack of some unknown etiological agents, the villi of the small intestine, they undergo atrophy. The villi which are present on the small intestine, they undergo atrophy, and due to this there is a reduced absorption of B12. And if the B12 it is not absorbed from here, the person, he will surely develop B12 deficiency. Another reason, it is due to TB or tuberculosis of GIT. If there is a tuberculosis of GIT, then the bacteria of tuberculosis, it will come here in this terminal ileal region, and here it will settle down. Now, why do they settle down here only? Because as they enter in the GIT, they come to the stomach. In the stomach, they can't make their residence, or they can't stay here because of the acidic nature in the stomach. Here in the duodenum and jejunum, they move very fast. But in this region where chyme occurs, or below or before the ileosphincter valve, there is accumulation or incorporation of this bacteria. They settle down here and they cause tuberculosis of GIT, which may result into vitamin deficiency. Another reason, it is due to malabsorption. This disease, in this we call it as Crohn's disease. In this, there is malabsorption of this B12 or any other vitamins or products. Crohn's disease, it can occur in any part of the GIT from anus to the mouth, but most common site for Crohn's disease, it is the terminal ileum. And if in this terminal ileum Crohn's disease it occurs, then B12 from here it is not absorbed, and person, he will develop B12 deficiency. Another reason is due to development of lymphoma in the GIT. If lymphoma is developed, then also absorption it will be affected, and the person, he will suffer from B12 deficiency. Now, these were some of the reasons for B12 deficiency. Now we do a specific test for B12 deficiency. To know the exact reason of B12 deficiency, we do a test and we call that test as Schilling's test. We call it as Schilling test. This Schilling test, it helps us to know the exact reason of B12 deficiency. Now what is Schilling test? I will draw a short diagram here. Suppose this is GIT. Here is the circulatory system and here is kidney. Now in Schilling test, what we do, we give the patient, first we give him 1 milligram of radioactive B12 orally. We give him orally 1 milligram of radioactive B12, and at the same time we also intramuscularly we also inject, suppose this here are the muscles, and we are injecting here B12, which is normal. This is not radio labeled. This B12 it is not radio labeled, and the B12 which we are giving orally, it is radio labeled. And then urine is being collected over 24 hours and it is examined. Now what happens, I'll tell you. This B12 which is administered intramuscularly, which is normal and not radio labeled, it will be absorbed fast and it will load all the B12 binding sites. This B12 which we have administered intramuscularly, it will load all the B12 binding sites in our body, and this orally given radioactive B12, now it will come here in the GIT, but as this B12 it has already loaded all the binding sites for B12, this radioactive B12 it will not get site for binding, or very few sites will be available for this B12 to bind. Now this B12 it is coming in the GIT, this is radioactive B12, but no binding sites are available for this, because all the binding sites they are blocked by this B12. Eventually it will go to the circulation and through the kidney it will appear here in the urine. Now if significant amount of B12 it is present in the urine, then we say that there is no deficiency of B12, or there is no defect in absorption process. The deficiency it is caused due to reduced intake. Again I will tell you what are we doing. First we are giving the patient 1 milligram of B12 which is radio labeled, we are giving it orally. Then we are injecting normal B12 which is not radio labeled. This normal B12 which is not radio labeled, which we are giving intramuscularly, it will load all the binding sites in our body, and as all the binding sites are already loaded by this B12, the radioactive B12 it will not get any binding site and eventually it will appear in the urine. Now this was for the first patient. The first patient came, we did the Schilling test and there was nothing. The reason of B12 deficiency, it was due to reduced intake. Now we shall talk about some different patients. Now he is a happy guy, nothing is happening to him. In the second patient, we give him radioactive B12. We also inject normal B12 intramuscularly, but in the urine radioactive B12 it is present in very less amount, or significant amount of this radioactive B12 it is not present in the urine. Now if this B12 which is radioactive it is not present in the urine, it means that somewhere in the GIT this radioactive B12 it is absorbed. If this B12 it is not present in the urine, it means that in the GIT somewhere this B12 it is absorbed. Now what we do, we again give him radioactive. First we did the test, B12 it did not occur in urine. Now we do another test. In this we give him radioactive B12 along with intrinsic factor, and of course we are also injecting this normal B12. Now after giving this intrinsic factor in the urine, radioactive B12 it is present. When we examine the urine after giving a dose of intrinsic factor and radioactive B12, radioactive B12 it appears in urine. As this appears in urine, it means there was a deficiency of intrinsic factor. In third patient, we give him radioactive B12 plus intrinsic factor, and intramuscularly we are injecting the normal B12, but in the urine there is no presence of radioactive B12. That means it is again somewhere absorbed or somewhere disappeared in the GIT. Now we give him intrinsic factor radioactive B12 along with some antibiotics. Now this antibiotics which we have given, after giving the course of antibiotics, we do the test again, we repeat the test again, and now the B12, now the radioactive B12 it appears in urine. That means the problem was in the GIT, it was the microbial overgrowth in the GIT. These microbes they were consuming all the B12, and after giving the antibiotics, microbes they were killed and B12 it was available for absorption. Now in fourth patient we do all these things, but still B12 it doesn't occur in the urine. B12 still it is not present in the urine. Of course in all the cases we are also injecting this normal B12 intramuscularly. Now in fourth patient what we are doing, we are giving radioactive B12 plus we are giving him intrinsic factor plus we also gave him course of antibiotics, but still in the urine there is no presence of B12, radioactive B12. Now we add here, or we also give him pancreatic extract. Along with this we also give him pancreatic extract. We give him radioactive B12 along with pancreatic extract, and now the radioactive B12 it appears in urine. That means there was a problem here in the pancreas. The pancreatic juice it was not secreted due to chronic pancreatitis. Now in the fifth case or in the fifth patient, we do all these things, but still after giving radioactive B12 we also gave him intrinsic factor, we also add antibiotics to the course, and also we give him pancreatic extract, but still in the urine there is no presence of radioactive B12. That means there is a problem in ileum. Due to defect in ileal absorption, the B12 it is not absorbed from the ileum and it is not available for the patient or the person, and hence there is a development of B12 deficiency. Hence there is development of B12 deficiency. Again I will repeat this. What we are doing in Schilling's test, first we give the patient 1 milligram of radioactive B12 orally, then we inject B12 which is normal, which is not radioactive, and for 24 hours, over 24 hours we collect the urine and we examine the urine. If there is significant amount of radioactive B12 present in the urine, that means there is no B12 deficiency, because this B12 which is administered intramuscularly, it will bind all the binding sites in the GIT, and if it is binding all the binding sites in the GIT of B12. This B12 which is radio labeled, it will not get site for its attachment, hence it will not be attached and it will be present in the urine. This was for the first case. In second case, we give him, we do the normal chilling test, urine, in the urine B12 or the radioactive B12 it doesn't appear, so we give him radioactive B12 along with intrinsic factor. In third case, we give him intrinsic factor, but still in the urine radioactive B12 it is not present. Then when we give him antibiotics, after giving the course of antibiotics, B12 appears in urine. That means there was a problem of microbial overgrowth. In fourth case, we gave him radioactive B12, we also give him intrinsic factor, but we also give him antibiotics. After giving all this also, there is the B12, it is not present in the urine, and as this is not present, we gave him pancreatic extract along with this radioactive B12, and now it appears in urine. That means there was a problem here in the pancreas. And in the fifth case, we do all these remedies, but the B12 it doesn't appear in the urine. That means there is a problem in the ileal absorption. There is a problem in ileal absorption. Now, continuing our lecture forward, now we are going to discuss about the folic acid deficiency. I told you earlier that any vitamin deficiency, it develops due to three main reasons. First reason was when the intake of that vitamin it is reduced. Second reason was when the absorption of that vitamin it is reduced. And third reason was when the demand for that specific vitamin it is increased in our body. There are three reasons. First is either the deficiency it develops due to decreased intake, or second reason is due to reduced absorption. This absorption is reduced, and third reason is due to increased demand. Now, if a person he is consuming vegetables or green vegetables by frying, cooking or heating the vegetables, and we all know that when we consume the vegetables by heating them or frying them, the folic acid which is present inside the vegetables, it is destroyed by this heating effect. Hence, there may be a reduced intake of folic acid. The vegetables which we are consuming, in those vegetables the folic acid it may be already destroyed. Hence, there may be a reduced intake of folic acid. Another condition is reduced absorption. If a person he consumes lot of alcohol, or he is taking some oral contraceptives, or some anti-epileptic drugs are given, for example phenytoin. Now, we will see how alcohol it reduces the absorption of folic acid. We all know that folic acid it came here in the jejunum, and when it came here, initially they were in the form of polyglutamates. The folic acid it is present in nature in the form of polyglutamates, and they are not absorbed by our body as these polyglutamates they are polar compounds, they are not absorbed by our body. Hence, these polyglutamates before entering the jejunum, they are first converted by this enzyme into mono and diglutamates. Initially the folic acid they were polyglutamates, now they are converted into monoglutamates. With the help of this enzyme we call it as conjugases, and then this monoglutamates they are absorbed here in the jejunum. Now in this person who is consuming a lot of alcohol, the absorption of these monoglutamates in the jejunum, it is blocked. The absorption of these monoglutamates in the jejunum, it does not happen. Alcohol blocks the absorption from here. Alcohol and also contraceptive pills have the same mechanism. Both of these, oral contraceptives and alcohol, they do not allow the monoglutamates to be absorbed. And if the monoglutamates of folic acid, they are not absorbed, then a person, he will develop deficiency of folic acid. Another reason for reduced absorption, it is due to an anti-epileptic drug, we call it as phenytoin. This drug, what does it do? It blocks this enzyme conjugases. This enzyme conjugases, it is blocked by this phenytoin. Now if this enzyme is blocked, the folic acid, which was initially polyglutamates, they will not be converted into monoglutamates or diglutamates. And if it is not converted into mono and diglutamates, they will not be absorbed, because these polyglutamates, they are polar compound and we can't absorb the polar compounds. These were the three reasons which reduced the absorption of folic acid. Now in third condition, we see when there is an increased demand of folic acid. Folic acid demand, it is increased in some of these cases. First case is when a lady, she is pregnancy or lactation. In these two conditions, pregnancy and lactation, the demands of folic acid, they are increased, which may lead to a deficiency of folic acid. Another reason is when there is a rapid growth in an individual who is adolescent. Now in this adolescent, in the age of adolescence, the cells in our body, they are rapidly proliferating. As the cells, they are rapidly proliferating, they are rapidly dividing, they need more and more folic acid. Hence there is an increased demand of folic acid. If the demand of folic acid is increased, there may be the person, he may develop a deficiency of folic acid. Third reason is when the person, he is suffering from some of the cancers. Now when there is a presence of cancer in our body, then the cancerous cells, they are rapidly proliferating. They are malignant cells. They are rapidly proliferating. As they are rapidly proliferating, they require more and more folic acid for their DNA replication. And if there is a cancer, they will require more and more folic acid, and it may lead to increased demand, and this increased demand will eventually lead to deficiency of folic acid. Another condition, it is important one, when a patient, suppose he is a patient and this patient, he is suffering from iron deficiency anemia. Now this patient, he is having iron deficiency. As he is having iron deficiency, the bone marrow, the development of erythropoiesis or the erythropoietic process, it is stopped due to deficiency of iron. And when a doctor, he gives him oral dose or parenteral dose of iron, either the iron, it may be parenteral or oral or parenteral iron, when it is supplied to this patient, now in his bone marrow, the erythropoiesis process, it starts again, and there is a rapid erythropoiesis. There is rapid proliferations of the erythrocytes, of the RBCs, and as there is rapid proliferation of the RBCs, they require folic acid for DNA replication. Hence there is increased demand of folic acid when this patient is given more and more iron. The proliferative process in his bone marrow, which was stopped due to deficiency of iron, it starts, and there is a rapid divisions of precursor erythrocyte cells, and hence due to increased demand he may develop a deficiency of folic acid. Now these were some of the cases in which there was a deficiency of folic acid. Now I told you in the previous lecture about B12. You might be thinking why I am going into B12 now. I will tell you later. B12, in our body, B12, it is working in two pathways. First pathway is this. Here was methyl tetrahydrofolate, which was converted into this methyl tetrahydrofolate. It was just converted into tetrahydrofolate. Methyl group was transferred to the B12. Here was B12. Methyl group, it was transferred here. This B12, it again transferred its methyl group to homocysteine, and homocysteine, it was converted into methionine. This was the first biochemical reaction regulated by B12. Second biochemical reaction which was regulated by B12, it was this odd chain fatty acids in our body, propionyl CoA, which was converted into malonyl CoA, which was converted into succinyl CoA. This conversion of malonyl CoA into succinyl CoA, it was regulated by an enzyme. We call it as methyl malonyl CoA mutase, and it only functioned when there was B12 present on this enzyme. That means if the B12 it is absent on this enzyme, the malonyl CoA it will not be converted into succinyl CoA, and further there will be propionates and malonylates, they will accumulate in the neurons, and there will be demyelination of the neurons, which will lead to severe neurological dysfunction. Now these were the two biochemical reactions regulated by B12. Now if a patient, he comes to us and he goes to a doctor and he says that the doctor, he diagnoses that the patient he is suffering from, he is the patient, and this patient he is suffering from macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, and the reason of this macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, it is due to deficiency of B12. B12 it is reduced. Now in such patient, we should never ever give him folic acid unless we know the exact levels of B12. Folic acid, it should not be given to this patient unless and until we confirm the levels of B12, because if we give him lot of folic acid or just folic acid, then as he is having a deficiency of B12, that means the B12 it is less in amount, and if we are giving him a lot of folic acid, here the folic acid in this reaction it will be increased. As folic acid in this biochemical reaction it is now increased, it will pull more and more B12 in this biochemical reaction. He is already B12 deficient, and due to when we are giving folic acid to this patient, the remaining B12 which is already in less amount, it will be pulled in this pathway and it will be utilized here, and nothing will be remaining for this pathway. The B12 which was already deficient, after we gave the patient folic acid, the B12 which was deficient, it was pulled in this pathway, and very less or no B12 it was remaining for this pathway in the conversion of propionyl CoA and malonyl CoA and succinyl CoA. And as B12 is not available, it will, the propionyl CoA, it will convert into propionates, malonyl CoA, it will convert into malanoates, and they will further accumulate the neurons and demyelinate the neurons. And the person, he may precipitate a severe neurological dysfunction. Hence, never ever give a patient of macrocytic megaloblastic anemia high levels of folic acid unless confirming the levels of B12. This was about the neurological reactions. Now, another important thing about folic acid, it is about the levels of folic acid. Folic acid, it is measured in this two content. First is serum folic acid. Another is red blood cell or RBC levels of folic acid. In both of these cases, in serum folic acid and RBC folic acid, where we can estimate the exact levels of folic acid? The answer is in RBC levels of folic acid, because if there is a person, he is suffering from, he is having a deficiency of folic acid, and in the morning, in the afternoon, we take his blood sample, and before giving the blood sample in the morning hours, he eats or he consumes some of the green leafy vegetables, which will eventually go into his blood, and the levels of folic acid, they may fluctuate, and the serum levels of folic acid, they may increase. So, in both of these cases, more reliable for folic acid levels, it is the RBC level of folic acid, because this RBC level of folic acid, they will not fluctuate in a short interval as compared to the serum levels of folic acid. Hence, we prefer RBC levels of folic acid when we determine the levels of folic acid. Here was, I told you, in this biochemical reaction, this tetrahydrofolate, it was further converted to methylene tetrahydrofolate here. One CH2 group was attached to it, and it went into the further process. Here, there was one carbon donor, we call it as serine, which donated one carbon to this tetrahydrofolate, and it was converted into glycine. In our body, one more compound is present which works same as serine. This compound, he also donates one carbon atom, and after donating one carbon atom, this tetrahydrofolate, it takes the carbon in the further processes where it is required. That compound, we call it as FIGLU. We call it as FIGLU. FIGLU means forma amino glutamic acid. Now, if there is a folic acid deficiency, here the tetrahydrofolate, it will not be present. If tetrahydrofolate is not present, this FIGLU, it will not be able to donate its one carbon atom. As this FIGLU is not able to donate its one carbon atom, the levels of this FIGLU, they will increase in our body. As the levels of forma-aminoglutamic acid, they are increased in our body, they now appear into urine. This forma-aminoglutamic acid, they appear into urine. This was, I told you this, it was all about the folic acid deficiency. Now, we shall progress our lecture further towards the bone marrow findings and the blood findings in the patient of macrocytic megaloblastic anemia. Suppose here is the first we will see about the bone marrow findings. Bone marrow findings. Suppose this is a bone marrow and this person, he is suffering from macrocytic megaloblastic anemia. In the first lecture I told you, I explained this in very detail. Now if he is suffering from macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, these three important products will be present in his bone marrow. First is megaloblast. Here were the pluripotent stem cells. These pluripotent stem cells, they divided into two group of cells. One was the myeloid stem cell, another was lymphoid stem cell. These myeloid stem cells, they further divided into three groups. First was the erythropoietic pathway, which was converted, these were the erythrocytes, and it was converted into matured RBC. Here was the megakaryoid pathway, which was converted into platelets. And third, there was a granulopoietic pathway, which were converted into granulocytes, eosinophils, basophils and neutrophils. Now, due to deficiency of folic acid and B12 in this patient who is suffering from macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, there will be a desynchronization between nuclear development and the development of cytoplasm, or cytoplasmic maturation and nuclear maturation. There may be a desynchronization in both of these processes. In the first video I have explained it in detail, you may check there. Hence, due to desynchronization in cytoplasmic maturation and nuclear maturation, there will be production of this megaloblast in the bone marrow. Another is the bone marrow, it becomes hypercellular. The bone marrow, it becomes hypercellular. Now, for example, now the megaloblast, they are converted into this bone marrow. Now, as megaloblasts are converted, are megaloblasts normal cells? No, megaloblasts are abnormal cells. They are abnormal erythropoietic precursor cells which are produced in a body. As these are abnormal cells, they undergo apoptosis or they undergo phagocytosis in the bone marrow itself, and only 10% out of 100, only 10% of these megaloblasts, they are converted into matured RBCs. Only 10% of these megaloblasts, they are converted into matured RBCs. Now, as these megaloblasts, they are destroyed itself in the bone marrow, hence the RBCs which are produced, they are in less number. As the RBCs in the blood, they are in very less number, the hemoglobin which is present in this RBC, it will be also less. The hemoglobin, it will be also less. If hemoglobin in the body it is less, the person, he may develop hypoxia. And if the person, he develops hypoxia, here the kidney, it will secrete erythropoietin and stimulate the bone marrow for more and more proliferation. That means after this there may be a hypercellular bone marrow. The bone marrow, it may be hypercellular. Third reason or third finding in the bone marrow, it is about the giant metamyelocytes. Now, as there is B12 and folic acid deficiency, there is a defect in DNA replications. All the cells in our body which are rapidly proliferating, they are affected. Here, the erythropoietic pathway are affected. Then, the megakaryoid pathway is also affected, and also this granulopoietic pathway is also affected. As there are erythropoietic precursor cells and erythropoietic precursor cells, due to megaloid reaction, megaloblasts are formed in the bone marrow. In the same way, in this granulopoietic pathway also there are granulopoietic precursor cells, and due to megaloblastic reactions they are also converted into abnormal cells. In this granulopoietic pathway there are many types of precursor cells such as myelocytes, metamyelocytes, band cells, and due to this megaloblastic reaction in this granulopoietic pathway, there is production of this giant metamyelocytes. That means the precursor cells of the in this pathway, the precursor cells, they are affected due to megaloid reaction, and here is the production of giant metamyelocytes. Large metamyelocytes are produced. Eventually they are small. In the normal condition they are small in size, but as there is a megaloid reaction, their size is also increased. Hence giant metamyelocytes are seen in the bone marrow. Now we shall discuss about the peripheral blood findings. We shall discuss about the peripheral blood findings of this macrocytic megaloblastic anemia. This is peripheral blood findings. Now, as there is megaloid reaction in the bone marrow and the megaloblast, they are itself destroyed in the bone marrow, then the RBCs which are coming out in the peripheral blood, they are in reduced number. The number of RBCs in the blood, they are reduced because they are already destroyed in the bone marrow. Hence, the patient of macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, he may develop anemia. Another is the second finding, the megakaryoid pathway, it is also affected. As this pathway is affected, the synthesis of platelets, it is also affected. Hence, there is a deficiency of this platelets also. We call it as thrombocytopenia. This granulopoietic pathway, it is also affected, and as this granulopoietic pathway is affected, the neutrophils or the leukocytes, they are also less in number, and the patient, he may develop leukopenia, or in simple words, he may also develop granulocytopenia. And all these three conditions together, anemia, thrombocytopenia and also granulocytopenia, we call it as pancytopenia. We call it as pancytopenia. The platelets will also be reduced, RBCs will also be reduced, and the granulocytes, they will be also reduced. Most important finding in the blood, it is, as this granulopoietic pathway is also affected, the procedure or the precursor cells of the neutrophils, they are also affected due to megaloid reaction, and this megaloid reaction in this pathway of production of neutrophils, due to megaloid reaction, a neutrophil which is hyper segmented, it has more than 5 lobes of nucleus. Neutrophil, it has more than one lobe. The nucleus of that of a normal neutrophil, it is multi-lobated, but in this condition of macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, a hyper segmented neutrophil is formed or it is produced, which is present in the peripheral blood, and all the hematologists, they are very sure that if in a blood, if there is a single cell, if a single neutrophil with hyper segmented nucleus, if it is present in the blood, then we should be suspicious that a patient, he is surely suffering from macrocytic megaloblastic anemia, which is caused due to deficiency of B12 and folic acid. These were about the bone marrow findings and also about the peripheral blood findings. Here we complete the series for macrocytic megaloblastic anemia.